You, Soren. I am also not Martha Durkee Newman, your Director of Religious Education, but I will be bringing the Martha energy that I can for another activity that we're going to do. And this one is an activity where we balance our bodies. So just like we can balance our voices, how loud or soft we are, we can balance our bodies. And one thing I think that's really cool about balancing is that when something changes, we have to change our balance. So I invite you to notice exactly where you are right now. Maybe your feet are on the ground or they're up on the pew. Maybe your back's against the seat or leaned forward. Do you feel balanced where you are right now? Maybe some less balance over here. But probably most of you feel balanced because that's probably why you're in the position you're in, right? You wouldn't just be sitting there in an unbalanced position, maybe, unless you're 3. And when you're balanced, you're probably not thinking all that much about your body and where the center is. You found a spot and you feel balanced in it and you don't think about it. But what if you changed something? What if you lifted your legs or you leaned really far to one side? Maybe you have to start thinking about it just a little bit more. And maybe you notice yourself doing something to balance that out. When I'm standing here, I feel really balanced. But if I start to lean, I feel less and less balanced. And you can't see it because of our pulpit here, but I had to lift my leg to balance myself out. If I just kept leaning, I was going to fall over, because the center changed where it was, but I didn't do anything to rebalance myself. So sometimes our bodies do this kind of balancing and we don't even notice. If you really think about it when you're walking, when you lift one leg and then the other leg, your body is actually switching where the balance is so you don't fall down. Or if you're sitting down and something around you changes, your body might balance itself out so that you don't really think about it. If you pay attention when you're sitting still, you might notice that different parts of your body are moving and shifting as things feel more and less comfortable and you have more and less balance. And sometimes we have to think more about that. Sometimes we might not notice when we feel unbalanced, and we have to think about what helps us feel a little bit more balanced. So I'm going to invite us into a little guided meditation that's about finding your center. So I invite you to stop and breathe. Breathe fully, breathe those big breaths, fill your body with air. Deep, deep breaths. And focus on your own body and your own breath. Imagine deep inside you your own core, your own center, which is being fed and protected by your breaths. And when you feel yourself centered, let your focus shift outside of your center, outside of your body. And imagine and feel a connection from your center in the middle of you to the center of someone else nearby. A thread to someone else. It's between you and another person, and then another thread to another person, and another to the people in this room, and then expanding and expanding and expanding outward. Feeling your center, connecting to other people's centers. And as you take in all these threads, imagine that the threads start from someone else and they connect to someone else, someone who isn't you. And all those connections also build. We create a web of invisible connections. From my center to your center and your center to their center. from yourself to someone else's self. Breathe in that sense of connection from others to you. And breathe out your connection from yourself back to them. Breathe in all the connections to your center. And breathe out all the connections from your center. Feel the power that is in your center and how it flows out through those threads, through all the other centers, and then back again to you. To you here in the present. And then imagine a thread from you here in the present to you in the future, the you that has yet to be. What from this moment, this present, this center, do you want to carry forward with you to the future you? What is a choice that you want to make about how you want to be in the future? Connecting your center now, connected to that invisible web of centers, all the way into the future. Take a few moments to imagine that future from this center, holding that intention along the way. And then bring yourself back to your center in the present, breathing in all that nourishes you, breathing out what you do not need. Take a few more breaths in, connecting you to others, and out, connecting them back to you. And then come back to this moment, these people, this self, this present, with those who are here, and find yourself again at your center through breathing in and out.
Our reading today is from On Defense of Imbalance by the Reverend Douglas Taylor. Being out of balance is a dynamic, often frightening experience. Just imagine being off balance on a bicycle. Does dynamic and frightening cover it? I remember a portion of a dream I had when I was a teenager. I don't recall any more all that went on in the dream leading up to the moment I was falling off the cliff. I told my dream to my sister, and she said, "You know what you have to do, don't you? You have to fall." Oh, it's that simple, is it? Just fall. When everything in me is screaming to hold on? Yes. Sometimes you have to fall. Sometimes you need to let go of your balance so that you may live again. Sometimes what feels like holding your balance is really being stuck. And the way to move again is to go off balance and fall. When riding a bicycle, you have balance because of momentum. But you have momentum because you pedal on one side first, and then the other, and then back, and so on. You maintain balance through moments of imbalance. Otherwise, you are not moving. This sort of imbalance is healthy and productive, if a bit difficult to manage. In this way, imbalance is the threshold from an old balance center to a new balance center.
So I brought a prop today. Does anyone know what this is? This is a happy apple. This is a toy that I loved when I was little, so much that my mom thought I probably wanted to have it in my apartment at my house now. And she was right. The happy apple is all about balance and wobbling. So right now, right here, the happy apple is really well balanced, right? It's just sitting here on the pulpit. It's not wobbling, it's balanced. And I think it's a little bit boring because it's not what it's supposed to do. It's not a piece of art that you put up on a shelf and leave and never touch or look at again. It's a toy. And it's a toy that's supposed to wobble and unbalance and rebalance. When I knock the happy apple off balance, it starts to wobble and wobble and wobble and wobble until it gets back to the balanced place. And most importantly, it makes a fun sound. There are pieces inside the happy apple that make a noise when it's not balanced. They don't make a sound when it's balanced. It makes a noise as it tries to find its balance, and that's part of what makes it a fun toy. It wobbles around trying to find out how to balance back to the middle. And it's a toy for really little kids, even babies who can't do much, but they can bump into it and make it wobble and see it find its balance again. Wobbling can teach us a lot. It can help us figure out where we do feel balanced and where we don't feel balanced. It can help us understand what it feels like when we're not balanced and maybe what we need to do to get us back to feeling balanced. Sometimes you might want to be in the place where we wobble for a little bit, not finding our balance right away, but wobbling around and finding things out, figuring out the balance, the unbalance, and how we can go back and forth. Sometimes it's kind of fun to wobble. A little bit before the pandemic began, I started taking aerial silks. It's that thing where there's a fabric hanging from the ceiling and you climb up it and do really cool tricks eventually when you learn how to do them. But the beginning of the silks is just figuring out how to work with them. On the first day, after we did a big warm up with everyone in the studio and we told the people in our class our names and our pronouns and why we were taking that class, we stepped up into the silks. And about 15 minutes after that, we were upside down. I had never touched a silk before that night. I didn't know most of the language around it, and I was upside down. And I was definitely wobbly. Now, when you're doing silks, you can fall. It is possible. It is not an activity that doesn't have any risks. But there's a crash mat under you, a crash mat that expects that you'll probably fall at some point and is there to keep you safe. And what you are trying to do when you are doing aerial silks is to do the opposite of falling. You're trying to float as much as possible. You're trying to find the feeling of being suspended. And you might see people who are really good at this doing it and think they make it look easy. And they do. And I got a lot more appreciation for that when I started trying to do it and realized it did not feel easy at all. But I know a thing that's true now, even for the people who make it look easy, is that they are constantly wobbling and finding their balance. When you go upside down on the silks, you have to wobble. You have to figure out where your balance is and where the silk should be on your body and what your legs are supposed to be doing. Even still, when I go upside down on the silks, I get confused about where my body is. And I have to wiggle this leg and this arm and this elbow to think, okay, this is up, this is down, this is left and right. and figure it out. These things that most of the time I don't have to think about in my body. If I just stand here and close my eyes, I know which way it's up and down and left and right. But just that little bit of wobble, of shifting, makes it really confusing again. And the best thing about Silk's class, the very best thing, is that I'm never by myself. I am supported by people around me. There are other people in the class who watch me wobble and try things, who maybe have tried it before. They get excited when I finally get something that I've been working on, or they say, I used to have trouble with that too. What if you take this knee and you put it through the silk and then you hook it around and then you flip this way and you're upside down and you're trying to figure out all those pieces and wobbling your body, and then suddenly it happens, or it doesn't. And sometimes you get tangled. You need someone to come over and unwrap your leg and lower you down, and you try it again. And my teachers are great. They give me notes. They give me notes on things that will help make what I'm doing easier and more fun. They do not pretend that this is easy and effortless. They instead help me be realistic in what I'm doing and help me figure out what I might be able to do to help it work a little better. So they might say, okay, wiggle your right foot and see if that helps you figure it out. No, your other right foot. That's not your right foot. And I have to recalibrate in my brain. Or they say, that looks uncomfortable. Is that uncomfortable? And when I say yes, they say, okay, can you shift your arm, straighten your arm, and then lean back into your shoulder? Does that feel more comfortable? My teachers and the other people in my classes support me when I'm wobbling around. They help me find the places where I feel balanced, and they help me wobble more too. So really, sometimes I like to wobble. I like to try different ways of doing things. Sometimes I want to try something that I know is going to be off balance, like singing way too soft or way too loud or leaning over, because that helps me learn what does feel balanced. And if I do too much of one of the things, sometimes to balance, I need to overshoot the middle, go do the other thing, and then bring myself back. Sometimes it's fun to get unbalanced, to see how I feel about the different ways that I might be unbalanced. And sometimes I realize that something I thought would feel unbalanced actually feels kind of settled to me. And sometimes things that I thought would feel really steady and balanced actually feel a little wobbly, and I have to bring myself back to the middle. Sometimes, like the happy apple, I like to wobble. Sometimes I might feel really balanced if I sit nice and still, but then I don't really know where my center and my balance are. I know that it's here, but I don't know if it will still be there if I go 1 inch this way or a little bit backwards. When I start to wobble, that's when I start to learn things about myself. Sometimes I wobble too far and have to pull myself back. Sometimes I don't wobble enough and I just feel like I'm continuing to be still. And sometimes after I do a lot of wobbling, stillness is exactly what I need. Sometimes when I try a lot of things with my body or with my brain, things that are new and I feel unsteady and unstable, I need to just sit on the floor. I spend a lot of time in my house sitting on the floor because it feels more balanced to me. I feel more connected and grounded when my whole body feels supported. As we find ourselves in a new year, arbitrary though the calendar might be, in this new season, I invite you to think about in your life all the places you might be able to wobble a little bit or a lot, and how you might be able to do some more of that wobbling. It might feel uncomfortable. And I want you to know, if it does, that there is community to hold you. This community will hold you. We will counterbalance you when you tip over too far, and help pull you back. We will pick you up and dust you off and try again. But this community will also nudge you a little bit, invite you into a little bit more of a wobble of trying something new, knowing that we are here to hold you when you come back to the center as you find your way back, no matter how long it takes. And if you want to spend more time in the wobble, then we will be with you while you wobble. Whether you find many such moments in your life or just a couple, whether you decide to spend your time wobbling around or sitting still, know that you are held in love, a love to which you can return as a center. And know that you in your center are connected to others who are connected to others who are connected to futures, all of which helps hold us stable. Whatever you choose, however much you wobble, and whether those wobbles are chosen or not, may you do them filled with love, filled with community, and knowing that you can have a little fun with it. May it be so, beloveds.